Today, I'm joined by Dr. Justin Coulson, parenting expert, author, and founder of Happy Families, who has spent years working with families and understanding what actually helps kids thrive. We talk about boys, identity, purpose, and why so many young people feel lost right now. But more importantly, we talk about what we need to do about it. Because this episode isn't just a conversation, it's a bit of a wake-up call. Let's go on and see what Dr. Justin and I talk about. Hello, Justin. How are you?
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to talk to you, Kristi. I love podcasts. I love these conversations.
I'm glad because do you know you've been on my list for a long time, and I was like, oh, I wonder if Justin would have time to chat to little old me over in WA, and here we are. You said yes straight away, and I was like, yay!
Yeah, so two things. First of all, I love the work that you do. I'm such a fan. And secondly, I love WA. I mean, people can listen to the podcast everywhere, but I'm going to be in WA twice in term 2. I've got a few days in Perth, and then I'm shooting off to Karratha.
I worked in Karratha as a copper.
Oh,
as
wow.
a police officer. Yeah. So when you go up, have you been up there before?
I was there last year as well. Yeah.
So it's a different little world.
I just love going into regional areas where people like me don't normally go. And there's such an appreciation every time I do it. And then later in the month or later in the term, I'm in Bunbury, I'm in Perth, in Mandurah, and I'm also shooting off to Broome. I'm spending some time in Broome.
Yep.
So running seminars for people in schools and for
That's amazing.
Profits and organisations all over the place. So
that's amazing.
It's normally 3 or 4 times a year. Love the West. If it wasn't so far away, I'd probably live there.
Yeah. And I mean, look, you're going all over. Like I used to live in Port Hedland. I grew up in Port Hedland, worked in Karratha, Bunbury. I live in Bunbury right now. So, you're coming all over the place, but in WA, but it's a great place to explore.
We're having brunch when I come to Bunbury.
That'd be great.
Brunch in Bunbury. I like the sound of that. Brunch in Bunbury.
Brunch in Bunbury. There's some great brunch places. We're very lucky down here. We've got some of the most freshest primary producers. During COVID, none of us were scared of running out of food because we've got farms and farms everywhere here. So we were like, we'll be right.
Yes, yeah, you should secede. You really could in the West. You've got everything you need. You've got the iron ore. You've got the you've got oil, the natural gases, and you've got the food bulk.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky.
When I was in Bunbury last, I was down at Margaret River, Bunbury and Busso, and I rented a surfboard. I wish I could remember the name of the surfboard shop. It was a little independent shop just near Yallingup, and went up to the bay. There was like a 4.5, 5 metre swell coming through Margs, and it was blown out and windy and terrible, but Bunker Bay was pumping, and I got a whole bunch of really fun waves. I just
wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're very lucky. We're not here to talk about that, but we're here to talk about kids and parenting and all things good. When we last saw each other and we were in South by Southwest Sydney, you were talking about your new book and that you were writing. You were talking about it back then about writing
for 4 years.
That you were writing a book about boys, right?
Yeah.
I thought there was no one better than you to talk about, how we can help our boys in today's environment and society and stuff like that. But before we go there, in case one of my listeners or any of my listeners don't know about you, I'm sure they do, but can you just explain how you became Dr. Justin Coulson Happy Families?
Yeah, sure. Okay. First of all, I haven't seen the run sheet for today, so I'm delighted.
There is none. We don't run one. We just I was about to say raw dog it, but that's not the right term. Well, we just run it however.
Okay, so in a nutshell, and gosh, when I tell this story on stage, sometimes it can go 15 or 20 minutes. So let me try and
we'll keep it the compressed one.
I was hated school, wanted to be a radio announcer, didn't try at school, utterly completely and in every way failed school, scored on the bottom 15% of New South Wales kind of failed. And had a really successful radio career. If you've ever listened to the radio, you don't have to be very smart at school to do well on air. And I knew that. And so I had about a decade-long radio career, ended up at one of the biggest radio stations in the country at the time. It was Brisbane's B105, where I was doing mornings and I was looking after the music at the radio station. Had a wife and a couple of kids by then. I was in my mid to late 20s. And I was very, very good at work. And then I would go home and have no idea what was going on. I would go so far as to say I was failing as a father, mainly because I hadn't done well at school. I didn't understand anything about psychology. And like most people, I just figured you figure out relationships as you go. And it just wasn't working. I had a couple of really negative, awful incidents. And as a result, my wife, Kylie, who is normally very patient, kind, made it really clear that if things didn't change, then she would have to be quite active in making changes. And they weren't the kind of changes that either of us really wanted her to be making.
Yeah,
So
right.
having done a little bit of soul searching and inner work and being that little bit older, I was 27, I think 26, 27. There we 6'7". I just can't believe I said that. Uh, I left my radio career. I walked away from it.
Mm.
I was having a few moral quandaries at work anyway. I didn't feel like some of the stuff that I was being asked to do on air sat well with who I was
Yep.
morally. You start to work out
And
your identity.
ethically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I quit and I went back to school. I had to go to TAFE and did a year at TAFE and then went into the university system where I discovered that I was smarter than I thought. Well, actually, I don't think there's such a thing as smart or dumb, but I was much more motivated being at
Yeah.
university with a wife and now 3 kids and a mortgage than I had
Yeah.
been at high school when I just wanted to be a radio announcer. And I absolutely blitzed it. Graduated my 4-year psychology degree with first class honors. All the way
Wow.
through, I was working 2 and 3 jobs and like carting furniture in furniture trucks on weekends and working at Colorado selling shoes and shirts and
Wow.
I was literally working 2 or 3 jobs at any one time, studying full time. Kylie was at home with 3 kids, 4 kids by the time I finished the degree.
Wow.
And
God.
anyone who's ever done a psychology degree would know that you don't actually learn anything about parenting when you do a psychology degree,
No.
and that you can't do anything with a psychology degree once you've done it.
No, that's right. I did find that out from someone who was doing a psychology degree, and they're like, "We literally cannot practice psychology yet."
Got to do at least another 2 years after you do the degree. So at this point, I'm 5 years deep. I say to Kylie, "Hun, I just got first class honors. It seems that I'm doing really well here, but my degree is functionally and practically worthless unless I either get a master's or a PhD."
Yeah.
Kylie asked me what the difference was. I said, "Well, a master's is 2 years, a PhD is anywhere between 3 and 4 years." She said, "Could you do the master's?" And I said, "I'd love to, but no, I'm doing a PhD."
You're addicted to like the learning, like you were doing so well. You're obviously really good at being in that university environment. You must have got addicted to like that creative process, that space.
It's such a wonderful place to be. Yeah, I really loved it. So anyway, I did the doctorate, became a university lecturer, had our 5th child while I was doing the PhD. And after a couple of years of doing some lecturing and tutoring at the uni, I decided to start a business. And that's what I've done for the last 15 to 20 years. I've traveled the country, given talks, written books. I've got like 11 or 12 books. We've got
Wow.
the most downloaded parenting podcast in Australia.
Yeah.
And I've got that TV show that you might have seen on Channel 9, Parental Guidance, where we've done 3 seasons now and people just love it. So that's me in a nutshell. I don't think I got to 90. I think I went more than 90 seconds, but I did it as quick
That's
as I could.
okay. It's okay. We'll forgive you for that. I think though, it's interesting that 26, 27-year age group, like when you hit there, it's like I think in your early 20s especially, I don't know about you, but you sort of like, you're just going with what you think you're meant to do. Everyone sort of, you get this, we get told what we have to do, what jobs we should do, what careers we should do. And then you get to an age and you're like, hang on a second, why am I doing all of this when I don't like it or I don't want to do it or it doesn't fit anymore? And so that, just before you hit 30, you sort of have this. And I think it's also the brain development, right? 25, 26, your brain sort of goes into you're actually technically an adult for some people, not all. So yeah, I think your brain's fully developed then too.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. First off, there's enormous individual variability. There are some people who really do have their identity foreclosed. They're told what to do by their parents and they just follow it. There are other people who are really individualistic and no one can tell them anything. And then there's everybody in the middle. But I think there's this standardized path that everyone expects to take. And there's just a process. You've got to do school, that's standardized. Then you've got to do uni, that's standardized, or go and get a trade.
Yeah.
And then you've got to get into the workforce. Girls seem to do it better than boys, but I'm a really big fan of a gap year. In fact, I'm a fan of several gap years. Parents shudder when I say this. There's
I'm
a
a
tremendous
fan.
unease because we want kids to get ahead as fast as they can, like it's a race. Hello. I didn't leave school after I did my doctorate and what have you until I was 36 because I started when I was 27. I did nearly 9 years of study. And has it slowed me down? I've had such a rich and fulfilling life. I've had delightful career experiences. I would not change it. I just wouldn't. So I've told all of my kids, gap years. I don't care how you do in year 12, not important to me at all. Gap years, go to uni if that's what you want to do when you know that that's what you want to do, which might be 22 or 20. I've got one daughter who went back to uni at 25, another one who went back at 22. And I've got 2 who are sort of working out where they want to go and what they want to do. And so long as they're productive, I don't care. But
Yeah,
gap
well,
years is
that's
so
right.
important for growing up. Now, one more quick thing that you said, Kristi, there's a belief that our brain becomes neurologically mature somewhere around about 25 to 27, maybe 24, 23 for girls and 25, 26, 27 for boys. Some recent research published at the start of 2026 is now calling that into question and suggesting that neurological maturity may not occur until our early 30s. And that
I'm going to say my husband didn't mature until he's nearly 40. So I'm just going to say maturity, it's based on, I think, also experiences.
well,
Experience makes a big difference for maturity as well.
it comes down to a range of things. What do you value? Like, a lot of people don't know what they value. Their values are given to them, and suddenly they hit this age somewhere between, I'm going to say, 22 and 42, where they go, actually, that's not who I am. This is why we see people literally turning their lives on their head and giving them a good shake. They're like, this is what I thought I was supposed to do in my life, and it's not me. And isn't that wonderful? It's just a shame that it takes so long, but there's no wasted experience, and so long as you
No.
can be, I think that there's real value in just getting as much range and breadth as you can. Take the pressure off the kids. We've got higher levels of anxiety than we've ever had since measurement was taken with our young people, and a whole lot of it is related to, what if I can't get into uni, or what if I can't get the right job, and what if I can't save enough money for a house? Literally, this may sound cavalier, but I think the data is actually on my side. Take a few gap years, go and live life however you need to live it, ideally being somewhat productive, but go and live life. And then when you have a sense of who you are and what you want to do, the research evidence shows that people who have taken gap years, they step back into a university setting and they have every bit of success, if not more success, than the people who went straight in from school. They have higher completion rates. Like, they just do better at uni because
They're ready.
they're ready. When I was a uni lecturer, the kids that had come straight out of school, they'd put up their hand to ask a question. I'd say, yeah, what's your question? They'd say, is this going to be on the test? Whereas when a mature age student put up their hand to ask a question, they had questions about the content. They wanted to know, what does this mean? How does that relate to what we were talking about half an hour ago? I was reading this in the textbook and I'm trying to understand. And it was rich and it was deep and it was delightful. Kids straight out of school are like, I just got to get through uni so I can get on with life. But mature age students, they're saying, I got to get uni through me so I can make more of life, so that I can give more to life. It's just a totally different mindset. And as a mature age student and then a lecturer, I can tell you now that gap years are good.
Yeah, I hear you. Look, before we started press record, I mentioned about my husband, getting cancer at 44, and he's always, when he was a kid, he wanted to be an engineer, but his parents pushed him into becoming a tradesperson. And so he started a trade and he was really good. He's got autism. He's really good. He's very hyper focused on his career. He was, taking those steps to become this, that, and everything else. And then when something big like this happens, I guess, and some people it happens younger, some older, whatever, but it kind of pulls the rug out from under you. And he said to me recently, he said, I've never really decided what I wanted to do. Right. He wanted to be an engineer. He actually ended up becoming an engineer through his job, through his trade. He became a project manager and stuff like that. But he said, I never really got to decide what I wanted. Like, I always did the sport my parents told me to do. I did all of the things that he felt he had to do because that's what they told him to do. And so you become really good at following everyone else's ideas, thoughts, beliefs of what you should do, but you never really get to sit with it. And it was really interesting. He said it to me and I sat there and I was like, whoa. Okay, what would you want to do? And he goes, well, that's the thing. When you don't get a choice, you stop believing in having one or you stop dreaming.
There's some really interesting psychology around this as well. And that is that, so people think that we want freedom. We want lots and lots of freedom. We want to be able to choose whatever we want. We want full, utter, complete autonomy. But the research seems to indicate that if you have too much choice, it's paralyzing.
It is.
We actually need structures. We need a sense of borders and boundaries and frameworks, and we need to have limits on what we can do. And it's really important as parents that we don't make those limits too tight, but also that we don't make them too expansive. There's a principle that I teach parents all the time. It's called autonomy. Or autonomy support, actually. Autonomy is a basic psychological need. And I talk a lot about autonomy support. And parents, when they hear that, they're like, oh, I'm supposed to it's carte blanche. My kids can...
No, that's not true. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
That's not autonomy. And I think it's worthy of some explanation here. So when you get in the car and drive, Kristi, my presumption is that even in Perth, even when there's no one on the road, you still drive on the left-hand side, yeah?
Yeah, you still follow the rules, road traffic rules. That's
So
what they're
you
called.
technically you have no freedom. You have no independence around that. That is the law. If you don't do it, you're going to kill someone, or you're going to get fined. You're going to go to prison. Like it's going to work out badly. But you're not following the rules because you're going to get in trouble for breaking the
Mm,
rules. You follow the rules because you understand the rationale. You understand the why. The word that I really want to hammer home is you endorse the
yes.
rules. And so because you buy into and endorse the rules, you volitionally step into a controlled context and
Yes.
say, you know what, government, control me. I think that it's important that we all drive on the left-hand side of the road in Australia because otherwise it'll be carnage. And
Yeah.
it's the same with our kids, and it's the same. We've sort of gone into this career conversation, but I'm thinking about our teenagers.
And
We
our
have all
young
these
people.
conversations, and our young people. Yeah, where do you want to go? What do you want to do with life? It's really easy to foreclose on them and say, "This is what you will do." And I
Yeah, well,
talk
that
to kids.
happened to me. Like, you're
Oh,
going
really?
to go yeah, my parents were like and I'm like, I was in the 90s, by the way, everyone. My parents were like, "Computers are the way to go. You need to learn computers. You need to go into computer stuff. You need to go into" and I ended up falling into administration. So that's what I did until I got to 6, 7, 26, 27, and then had my child and became a police officer.
Right?
So
Yeah, yeah,
there you go. Like, I mean, I wouldn't have been ready for a police career anyway. But the thing is I think that a lot of parents we go, "Oh, this is what they're good at. Let's push them towards this."
Mm.
Yet they're good at it, but they might not enjoy it. And or and I love the autonomy stuff and like the supported autonomy. Because what I saw in policing is if you give children full autonomy with no boundaries and restrictions, they then go and make very
Chaos.
big chaotic mistakes that cost them a lot.
And cost
Whereas
society. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and like you get 18-year-old men, first time they're allowed to go and drink and they're, full of alcohol and bad manners and they have never been in a fight before, but yet they're picking on the biggest guy in the pub because they've never ever been shown that you don't go start a fight with someone you know you can't win.
Yeah. Well, you
And
don't get certified. Like just
you don't start a fight, but you don't start a fight with someone you know you can't win with, right? And I
uh,
used to see young guys, getting turfed out of clubs and acting really poorly up because they got told no and all of these stuff. And it's generally, unfortunately, young men. And so this is where this autonomy, this supported autonomy, it's about, hey, this is, and I was really big on consequences with my daughter, not in that I was holding her to a consequence, but I was like, you realize that everything has a consequence and we choose the consequence when we choose to what we do with it.
yeah, yeah. My parents used to say, when you pick up a stick, you pick up both ends, right? So, and I'd be like, no, because you can drag the stick along the ground. They're like,
I wish you weren't
yes,
getting the rule. You weren't
yeah,
getting that lesson yet. But
right.
it's true.
So if we go back to the whole identity stuff and career stuff, there are a couple of things here. First off, young men will not feel good about their lives if they are not doing anything that is worthwhile. So let me go back a step. Every single
Hmm.
person is quote unquote worthy, right? Humanity, by virtue of your humanity, you are worthy. However, if we do not do things that help us to feel worthy, regardless of our innate worth, we feel
Yeah.
unworthy. And too many of our boys are failing to launch. There are too many non-thriving young
Young.
boys and young men, and they're not thriving because, unfortunately, they're sitting in the garage or they're sitting in their bedroom, staring at a screen and vaping, and living off mum and dad. They're not doing anything productive. They're not doing anything challenging. They're not doing anything hard, unless you call leveling up on Fortnite hard. And I don't call that hard or productive. And
No.
so what happens there is we give them too much choice,
Yeah.
and they are either A, paralyzed, don't know what to do, or B, they're sucked into a world that has been designed to entrap them, to harness and absolutely take over their psychology, to literally neurologically hijack them. What we need to do instead is work with them and help them to understand what choices they have at their disposal that are within appropriate parameters. And so this means that we talk to them from the age of about 13 and 14 about being productive. They don't have to know what they want to do. In fact, I would discourage it. What I would encourage is, hey, kiddo, over the next few years, you're going to work through high school. You might like it, you might hate it. Either way, if you finish high school, here's the rationale. Here's the reason that I want you to buy this. Because if you finish high school, you will earn over the course of your lifetime at least $300,000 more than somebody who doesn't finish high school, and probably a lot more than $300,000. Somebody who finishes versus non-complete, a minimum $300,000. If you can get a university degree, you'll earn about $500,000 to 1 million more. And if you go beyond that, even more again.
Yeah.
This has massive social and economic consequences. And besides that, whether you like it or not, from a social and mating perspective, the
Yeah.
data shows that girls tend to look across and up economically and educationally. So if a girl's looking for a mate, she looks across and up. She does not look down.
Yes.
So if she's got a university degree, as a general rule, she's not looking for somebody who didn't finish high school. She may choose somebody who's qualified in other ways, such as a tradie, because there's
They're
an
providers.
economic viability there.
Yeah.
But girls are looking across and up on both economics and on education as a general
Yeah.
rule. And unfortunately, what that means, given that for every 10 young women who finish high school, we have somewhere between 7 and 8 young men finishing high school. And given that for every 10 young women who go to university, we have between 6 and 7 going to university. And we only have about 6 graduating from university for every 10 young women. What that means is that women are looking across and up and they're not seeing anything. There are too many, and again, this is a terrible term to use, but I'm going to use the term anyway, non-viable in the eyes of these young women, too many non-viable young men who are basically saying, the women are saying, well, where are all the guys? And unfortunately, when you add into the mix too many boys and young men who don't know how to behave themselves with consideration, grace, and courtesy. As I've written this book, somehow I've ended up on my book.
No, we want to talk about your book because you've been writing that book for 4 years and it's an important book.
I've lost count of the number of women and girls who have told me that they do not want or need a man in their life because they're not. A man won't show up and be a bonus. He's going to be a drain. He's going to be a cost. He's going to require more of her than she's willing to give. She's not going to get back nearly what she gets because she's looking across and up and going, where are they? Oh, there's only across and down, and I don't like the look of that.
Yeah.
So
it's true. It's true. I talked to my daughter about this. Like I used to say to her, if I think generations before us, it was a different generations, different, but we're educated women now. Like we have rights. We are allowed to buy property. We don't have to, we can have our own bank accounts. Like there's a whole different, and we're not going into that. But what I'm saying is that as a mum of a young girl, I was having conversations about healthy relationships and all of these things from 10. And so, when we talk to our young people, we need to make them realize that it's not about what you need to be, and you pointed it out, you need to be happy with who you are and you need to feel like you're contributing. So therefore, if you're not contributing and if you haven't got anything to bring to the party, then no one else is going to think that either. Like no one else is going to want you.
Let's take that back to autonomy support. Our job as parents is to work with our children, our young men and our young women, and offer them guidance, but not tell them what to do. So here's the general conversation that I would recommend. Hey, kiddo, have you got any thoughts about what you'd like to do after school? Or even, do you plan on finishing school? And once you get some information, you've explored a little bit, you might want to explain a couple of things. So you might say, well, statistically, you're going to do better if you do finish school. And if you get some sort of certification, you're just going to be better. You're going to be more viable. You're going to learn skills. You're going to be more valuable in the marketplace. You're going to earn more money. You're going to feel like you're making more of a contribution. And that's the other really interesting thing. When you upskill, when you get certified, when you get a degree, when you get your qualification, your trade, your tickets, whatever those things might be, when you get them, you feel like you're going to do something worthy. So you feel more worthy. You feel better about yourself.
Got ya.
To close the link on what I was saying before. So it doesn't really matter what you do. What matters is that you're productive.
Yes.
Take a gap year, have fun, maybe do some travel, learn what it's like to earn minimum wage and decide whether you like that or not. And if you're fine with it, then that's fine because there's plenty of people who earn minimum wage who make a great contribution to society. But if you want more than minimum wage, then we've got to work out how you can get the support you need so that you can move in that direction. And then the other thing that I really emphasize is it's a little bit it's hard to say it, and I haven't lived it, so I feel a little bit hypocritical. I really believe that we should be encouraging our children to choose careers where there is a reasonable expectation that they will be financially viable in that career. So
yes, I get you. I understand it.
An author or an Instagrammer or a YouTuber, to become a professional sports person or a photographer or a restaurateur, to become a gamer, a streamer. Like when you do those things, my sense, well, not my sense, statistically, you're less likely to earn the money that you need so that you can function, so that you can survive. You want to be an artist, that's great, but who's going to put food on the table? How are you going to get the commission? How are you going to get the work? So I generally, this is a little bit, maybe a little bit rude, but I call these vanity careers.
And only 1% of them actually succeed. Probably we've got to be like, it's a common thing at the moment. I don't know if you hear this, probably, I'm not sure, but I hear it from young women, especially. I'm just going to go and be someone on OnlyFans, right? And I always go, well, all more power to you if you want to. Like, I never say, look, that's whatever, but more power to you. But did you know that only less than 1% of those people are actually successful? Most of them are paying to be on those platforms and they're earning nothing. So
Yeah.
unless you have something that and ethically, all of the other things that go along with it, but most people are not successful. Most people are not successful on YouTube, gaming. And so we need to keep it real with our kids. And another thing that I always was taught is you never leave a job unless you have a job to go to. So for me,
Easy
I
to get
taught
another
that to
job
my
if you
daughter, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's easier to get a job if you've already got one. And also there's no slacking off, right? You either it's you go to another job and you go from one job to the next, or you're going in. So one of the rules in our house was if you're not working, you're volunteering. And if you're not working, you're doing something here and you're working here. So my daughter, she's like, I don't want to help around the house. I'm going to go get a full-time job and I'm just going to go and work. And so she went straight from school into full-time work. She's
Yeah.
having a gap year. She doesn't know what she wants to do next, but she's learning, she's experiencing, and that's all kids really need, young people need.
Again, they have freedom to choose what they're going to do within the constraints of you're earning or learning, you're volunteering, you're doing one of these things. You can choose whatever you want within those constraints.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that for the most part, when we teach this to our kids, especially from a younger age, they're much more likely to buy into it. Let me go back to just finish that career thread for a moment. So what I generally advise is go and get a qualification or a certification in an area where pretty much every single person who wants to do it can get a job in it if they want to. Like 95% of the people who want to be an accountant will get a job as an accountant. 95% of the people who want to be a car mechanic or a builder, carpenter are going to get the job. They've just got to get the certification and then they're away, or the degree and then they're away. And once you've done that, then get good at it.
Yeah.
Get into the top 10%, and you'll never want for anything. You'll also gather all of the rewards that come from being in the top 5 or 10%, which will mean that you get to charge a premium for your services. It'll mean that your books are always full. It'll mean that you get recognized at conferences or at industry awards and that kind of thing because you're doing outstanding work. If you don't like it, if you're bored by it, once you've secured some level of financial foundation, that's when you can say, all right, well, what else could I do? For example, I still don't own my house or anything like that. We've still got a mortgage and all that sort of stuff. But I'm starting to look at what it would cost me and how I could fit into my schedule, learning how to become a bicycle mechanic.
Wow. Because you love learning, I can tell.
I love learning and I love bicycling, and it's just something that I'd really love to know how to do. I've made sure that I've got the financial security that I need so that doing that isn't going to come at a tremendous cost to me.
You've still got things that you need to do. There's responsibilities that you need to fulfill so that you can do that. Yeah.
The bank will foreclose if I don't pay my mortgage payment.
Exactly.
Let me just talk about following your passion for a second. I don't have a problem with kids wanting to follow their passion, but they've got to be productive and they've got to be taking steps towards it. And if they're doing that, then I'd say go for it, because all of that will give them experience. It will give them that range and breadth that they need, and it will help them to make something of themselves.
Yep.
I would just say that it's going to be much, much harder. And the one thing that I'm not willing to do, as you've indicated you're not willing to do, is I'm not willing to support my children while they sit at home on the couch and navel gaze.
No.
Just not going to happen.
Well, it wasn't allowed for me. And most people who listen to my podcast know that I was there was no slacking in my house, and I was actually out of home by 15, bought my own house by 18.
Wow.
So it's
that's impressive.
Well, not really. I was kicked out, but it wasn't because of me. It's a whole thing. But
well, getting the house by 18, that's impressive.
But I bought a house by 18 in 3 months. And it was because I worked in real estate. I had a full-time job working in real estate, and I knew that renting was dead money. Also, we were told, right? And so I wasn't going to rent something. I was going to buy something and back then in the late 1990s, we could, buy a house for $96,000. Our kids are in a much different situation today.
They are, but you know what I'm going to say, and this is going to make me deeply unpopular with everybody, Kristi. If your kids are disciplined and willing to work their tails off and make smart choices, they can actually still get into the market. I've got 2 kids now who are, one who's in the market, one who's about to be. This is still doable. It's hard. I'm not arguing for a second that it's not hard, but with good financial advice, great guidance from parents, maybe a little bit of a leg up if you can. I mean,
some tenacity too, like not giving up because it's not easy.
I'm astonished at what my kids did. So my eldest daughter and her husband, they got married young. They bought a place, realized that they didn't like how much it was costing to live in it. So they went and moved in with some friends of theirs and they rented out their unit. And over the course of
Mm.
3 years, the unit appreciated in value as everything does over time.
Yeah.
And when they were able to sell that unit, they had enough money to literally move
Do
out
the
of
next thing.
yeah, and they bought themselves a house. And I'm
Yeah.
watching my second daughter now make preparations with her husband as they step into similar decision making. And what I would say is, no, it's not as easy as it used to be. I'm not trying to say anyone can do it however they want. But what I am saying is, with discipline, as you said, with tenacity, with good guidance, and with a really clear goal, it's extraordinary what young people can achieve. And I look at my kids, they're doing way better than I ever did. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, and I think also I do say sometimes you have to see it to be it, right? Sometimes, so we do have to model something that, I mean, from my situation, I was talking about this the other day. Like, everyone's really worried with what's happening in the world, very, very real issues going on in the world, and I was like,
It's
well, I
always
grew
been messy, though.
It has. And when you work in policing, you do know that it's messy underneath. Like, there's this under layer of like society and stuff, and people are really in it all the time. And so you kind of get used to living with chaos. But I was saying to, like, I grew up in a caravan in the 80s because my family didn't have money. They were like, we were living on like the poverty line. And I'm like, I'm happy to live in a caravan if that means I've got a roof over my head and I can afford it. I'll happily live back in one. But I think, though, again, like, it kind of going off the topic, but it's really doesn't. Your situation is changeable. It's movable. I think when we get really stuck in that mentality that it's hopeless, and we don't want our kids to feel that way. We don't want our kids to think everything's hopeless. There's nothing they can do, because then they get stuck sitting on the couch. They get stuck in that moment where they don't think anything's possible, and we want kids to think things are possible and
Here's
doable.
one of the most profound psychological theories that I've ever come across. It's called hope theory. If you don't feel hopeful, you feel hopeless. You just use the word. So let's talk about what builds hope. You need 3 things. Number 1, you need a goal. And there's too many of our young people, both boys and girls, young men and young women, who don't actually have any clarity. So many of them just feel lost. Literally, like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you enjoy? I don't know. And I blame screens for a large part of that. Not entirely, but for a large part of that. If you don't have to do the inner work, then you never work out what your values are. If you don't work out what your values are, you don't work out what it is that you want, what you're seeking to achieve, what you're striving for. So the first thing that you need to have if you want to have hope is clarity around your direction, your vision, your goal, your purpose. The second thing is pathways. It's one thing to say, oh, I want X. I want to be a billionaire. But if you don't have any pathway to billionaire status, then you'll become hopeless very, very quickly. And usually, whatever the goal is, whether it's to become a bricklayer or a stonemason or a hairdresser, whatever it might be, when you consider where you're headed, there's usually multiple pathways. I want to go and get a degree, but I failed high school. Guess what? There's so many pathways into university.
Yeah, there is.
I want to get a trade, but it doesn't seem like there's anyone willing to take on apprentices.
Do
We
a
lose
pre-apprenticeships, TAFE.
traineeships, there's work
Yeah,
experience, there's volunteering. There's so many ways to get it. I've got a daughter who's just gotten a school-based traineeship, apprenticeship thingy. What's it? She couldn't get a job to save herself in the area that she wants to be in, but because of school and work experience, she developed some relationships, and
yep,
now she's got a job doing what she loves because
yep,
there are so many pathways to get in there.
yeah,
So you need goals, and then you need pathways. And then the last thing you need is this thing that psychologists call agency. So agency is basically, if you're walking along a pathway and you bump into a wall, do you believe that you can find another pathway? Can you get out the shovel and start digging and get under the wall?
yep,
Can you pull out the carabiner and the ropes and tie
and
some
climb
knots
over.
and climb over it? And if you've got those 3 things, you'll be hopeful. I think that so many of our young people are struggling because they are without hope. They don't have goals, they don't have pathways, or they don't have the self-belief to walk along the pathways to the goals. And yet, if we can sit down with our kids and work through this with them, it's extraordinary what we can do and how fast they progress in the direction of their dreams.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also, I have always reminded my daughter I didn't finish school. Like, I got kicked out of home at 15. I finished year 10 and 11, and then I had to go into full-time work to support myself. So I didn't finish school. But yet I, at 27, or 28, decided to become a police officer. Went to TAFE, did some TAFE studies because I hadn't been to school in over 10 years, got into the police, became a detective, have an advanced diploma in, police investigations, became an author. The thing is that anything is possible when you want it, and you've got all of those three things, that hope, that pathway, and there is pathways. They miraculously appear when you stop saying that they're not there. So,
yeah. So politically impolite thing to say, insensitive thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. We've got to step out of our victimhood. And what I think has happened in the last 20 years, maybe 30 years, is we've increasingly focused on labels and diagnoses and reasons to blame everything external. And there is no denying that there are a whole lot of external factors that make life harder. I'm not saying that those things don't exist. And I'm not saying that labels and diagnoses don't exist either. I'm not actually saying that. What I am saying is, in spite of it all, in spite of the ADHD or the autism, in spite of the setbacks or growing up in poverty or living in a caravan, in spite of not finishing high school, in spite of blah, 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 you can find millions of examples around the world of people who have risen far beyond anything anybody would ever have expected. Because they refuse to be defined by their past, by their history, by their diagnosis, by their label, by their circumstances. And once again, when we have these conversations with our kids, we don't have to dive into all that sort of stuff. We just have to say, what would you like to do? What do you value? If a kid wants to know what they want to do with their lives, suggestion is that they follow their curiosity.
Yes.
What are you so curious about that rather than staring at a screen and playing Fortnite or GTA or scrolling TikTok, what are you so curious about that you would actually read a book on a Friday night instead of going out to a party? And that's what happened with me in psychology. I literally, if I could turn my screen around and show you my bookshelf, which is set up here in front of me.
You would be reading books.
I've got a lifetime supply of psychology textbooks and psychology content here, and it's still not enough because in my bedroom, my bedside table is stacked with about 30 books that I've ordered that I still haven't quite worked through. Helping kids to tap into the thing, and it's really hard to find that sometimes, especially when you keep on getting distracted with screens. Last thing I'll say about screens, because I know that this is an area that you're so passionate about, consistently bemoan, grieve the enormous lost human potential that is caused by screens. How many kids coulda, shoulda, woulda been inventors or academics or doctors or architects or builders of the latest grand design or pro surfers or Formula One drivers or bakers or hairdressers? So many different things, but instead TikTok grabbed them by the brain cells, shook them and didn't let go. So much lost human potential.
Well, the good thing is that we've got the good thing is that because we did just see someone win a court case in the US saying that but here's the thing, it's not the end. It just means that they can come back at 26 or 27 and go, actually, I want to become a psychologist. I want to do anything, because humans aren't stupid. But the one thing I did want to say is, it's a reason, not an excuse, is what I used to say to my daughter. Might make with regards to autism and ADHD, she's dealt with both. My husband's dealt with both. It's a reason why it might be a little bit harder, but it's not an excuse for why you can't do something. So that's what I said to her and I say to him, and they don't get much leeway with me. They're like,
most of them, I say to my kids, don't complain to me about the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do.
Yeah.
Which is,
and it's the truth, right? It's the truth. We can't sugarcoat it. You can try and help them see it, but without being so blunt. But bluntness actually can be quite helpful too.
Well, it's always couched in a lot of empathy and usually served up with a chocolate milkshake.
And it's okay, but you didn't work hard. So sorry, that's kind of your fault.
That's right.
I know. I'm empathetic to a point, and then I'm like, I don't have any empathy left if you're the reason why you've got that result.
While I was writing the book about boys,
tell us about the book.
In fact, I've still got it here. Let me just pull this off the wall. I'm going to have to break something, I think. Hang on a sec.
Don't break anything.
It's breaking. Here you go. Can you hear the clunking and the breaking?
I did. Oh, my goodness.
I've just ripped the gyprock.
No.
On the top. Do the work. Do the work, because that is how you do it. And now I've got to patch up my wall. No,
but that's the thing. Do the work. And our young men and our young people in general, but girls do it better. They pick themselves up quicker. They get on with it quicker. But our young men need us to hold them to account and let them do the work. Let's not rescue them as much as we have been, because that's not going to help them.
Totally. There's this metaphor that I've been using a lot lately around resilience, and it's as follows. Our children are going to come across dragons. There's dragons everywhere. You remember the old pirate stories, here be
Yeah.
dragons, or maybe
Yeah.
not pirates, but whatever. The old folk tales, here be dragons. And there are dragons in our lives, and our job is not to slay the dragons for our kids. Our job is to prepare our children to be dragon slayers.
Yes.
And I don't know, hopefully this conversation has been useful in providing some support and some guidance around that.
Well, I think it will, and I think it starts much younger than we realize. Like our kids from, because I feel, and I think we had this conversation at South by Southwest. I think we expect too much from our little kids and not enough from our teenagers. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think,
yeah.
like we really put a lot on little kids to have better behavior and to do this and to do that. Yet when they get to teenagers, it's like hands off and leave them alone and let them get on with it. And you're like, hang on a second. And
No.
my experience in the police is that that's actually really it can be very detrimental to their future. So,
Hey, I'll tell you what I do in my family. This is a little bit extra, and I can't help myself. But
it's probably because you've got the experience that you know that this is important too.
every Sunday, the kids know that at 8:30 we're sitting as a family around the table, and they hate it, and they come in and they complain and they roll their eyes, and sometimes they've literally gotten out of bed and you can smell their breath across the table. It's so bad.
8:30 a.m. You're saying?
Yeah, that's right.
I thought 8:30 p.m. Really?
No,
That's
8:30
late.
a.m. Yeah. And we have like this 15-minute Sunday chat. The kids just know this is what we do every Sunday, 8:30. It's compulsory. You can moan and groan all you like, but it's compulsory. And we just pick a different topic every week.
Mm,
We talk about the stuff that they're confronting at school. We talk about the stuff that's in the media. We talk about stuff that we're worried about. We talk about mental health. We talk about consent. We talk about alcohol and
yeah.
other substances. You name it, we talk about it. And it is kind of open mic night as well, right? Like the kids are allowed to ask whatever they want.
Yeah.
And generally,
That's awesome.
we ask them a few questions. We share a couple of thoughts, and then we just see where it
Open the
goes.
table.
Yeah, sometimes it's good
Anyone.
10 minutes, and other times they're still there 45 minutes later, even though they complained about it. And what we're doing here is we're talking about character, we're talking about morality, we're talking about values,
Yeah.
we're talking about you endorse these rules. Here's what they'll do for you if you follow it. We talk about careers and study and gap years and STIs, you name it,
Yeah.
it gets a conversation. We have watched our children, maybe a story to finish up. About a year ago, when I was writing the boys' book, I was working on a definition of healthy masculinity. How do we give boys a model of what it is to be a healthy man? And I settled on this. A healthy man is someone who helps the people around him to feel safer and stronger, right? Safer and
I
stronger.
know.
Can the guy that you're with help you to feel safer and stronger? Now, if I had a son, that would be on repeat. It's all I'd be saying. Safer and stronger, safer and stronger. Can you help people be safer and stronger? Full stop in a story. But I have daughters and they need to hear it as well. So we had that conversation. Fast forward a few months, maybe 6 months or something. My daughter, one of the girls, has got a boyfriend. About 4 or 5 weeks later, she breaks up with him. She comes home, she's crying, she's sad, she's sobbing, and I'm like, must have been tough 4 weeks in, but it must have been serious. I'm very, very upset, and she really feels big emotions all the time.
Yeah.
I said, hey, how come you broke up with him? And get this, she said, Dad, when I was with him, I did not feel safer and stronger. When we were alone, he was always putting me to be inappropriately intimate. We barely know each other, and he's just put the pressure on from day one. And when we're together, he's telling jokes at my expense. He's just putting me down and denigrating me. I didn't feel safe, and I didn't
Oh,
feel
wow.
strong. I felt small and insecure.
But you had modeled that and shared that with her for so long. She knew it was not right.
Right. And so that's the power of doing that. Is it easy for every family? No. Is it doable for every family? Maybe not. But finding ways to have these conversations regularly where you're talking about morality, where you're talking about endorsement of safe, healthy values,
Yeah.
this kind of stuff is what helps us to raise
100%.
flourishing, thriving young men and women.
Well, what a great that is the best. Like, I love that your daughter, first of all, I don't like that she went through that, but how amazing is that she was able to stand up for herself and know that this person is not making me feel safer and stronger. And that's all we want for our boys and our girls. No one has a little baby and gives birth to a little child and goes, I don't really care if you're an asshole kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want your child to grow up and be that safe and strong person, that one that fights for the people who can't fight for themselves. One of the things I said to my daughter all the time is it's our job, because we have voice and we have our autonomy and everything, it's our job to stick up for those who can't stick up for themselves. And so she became that little battler in the playground, sticking up for everyone, and it put a big target on her back, but she's strong enough to handle that. And so, again, all of those values that we instill on our kids, they help them become the best adults, the most, supportive, amazing humans, and hopefully happy humans and happy families. So
Great.
thank you, Dr. Justin. So lovely to see you. And so where can everyone find your books, your 11 books, and your stuff?
So what I would say is just if you're interested in the boys' book, it's available for pre-order now. And pre-orders actually determine the success of a book. So if you can, jump onto Booktopia and just press the pre-order button, because it would be amazing. The book is called Boys, Building Strong Young Men from the Inside Out by me, Justin Coulson. The rest of my stuff, just Google me. I'm very easy to find. And
the Happy Families.
The Happy Families website, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
all that
the
sort of
podcast
stuff.
is pretty awesome too. So yeah, that's where they'll find you. I'll make sure everything's in the show notes as well, though.
Great stuff.
And when does it come out officially?
The book is officially out June 16. But
not far away.
It's not far away. It's really, really close. And like I said, pre-orders make a huge difference.
I'll make sure.
I'm not too proud to beg. I'm begging, I'm groveling.
I'll make sure that people know about it.
Yeah, this is the right time for this book. People need this book, and I know that I've written something that's going to be helpful. So,
our girls and boys need this kind of connection, this kind of collaboration. We need to work together with our young people to make them, because otherwise they go through life feeling so shit, literally bad. They don't feel great. They don't feel valued and valuable. And so it's not a great life when you feel like that. So we want them to have good lives.
Well, awesome chatting with you. Thanks,
You
Kristi.
too. No worries. If this conversation got you thinking even a little bit, then that's exactly where change starts. Because raising kids who are confident, capable and grounded, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens through the conversations we're willing to have and the standards we're willing to hold. And I think what stood out most for today is this. Our kids don't need us to control their lives, but they do need us to guide them, challenge them and help them build lives they actually feel proud of. If you want to dive deeper into Justin's world, I'll link everything in the show notes, including his new book, Boys, which I truly believe is an important read for parents right now. And if you're ready to start having better, more meaningful conversations with your own kids, this is exactly what my work is about as well. Because protecting kids isn't just about what we stop, it's about what we teach. So thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.